Good morning, Cochise County, and welcome to the Michael Zehr Show, coming to you live from the Rising Eagle Studios here at the Warrior Healing Center in Sierra Vista, Arizona. I was, right before I went online here, I was looking at my watch because I wanted to make sure I didn't screw up today's date, and the watch thing is right on the date, so I'm thinking, though, it's Friday, February 26th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so that's a good sign. That means I'm off to a good start. So our local veteran that we have sitting down with us today is Keith Silva. Keith, thank you so much for sitting down with us today
You're welcome, Mike.
and sharing some of your story with us. Where do I want to get started with you today? Let's see. How about at the beginning? That's where I always start.
How far in the beginning?
How far in the beginning do we want to go?
Yep.
Back when you were a little tiny baby.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
All right.
What was it? And this is one I love asking this question. And Joshua Mayer, I don't know if you're watching or not, but if you ever do, he's the one that came up with this question, and I just love it.
Okay.
What inspired you to join the United States military?
Man, there's a combination of things. I guess first was I came from sort of a more military background. My father was in the service. My grandfather was in the service. My uncle was in the service. So there was some of that. And I always gravitated towards the warrior mindset as far as,
Okay.
I felt a calling to be a service member. It was something about the military, maybe the sacrifice of stories I read. I read a lot of history on World War II in Korea as a young kid.
Wow.
And my stepdad was a platoon commander in Vietnam. So that, I don't know, I just had a calling for it, probably like a lot of people that join. My family life wasn't the greatest, so that played a part. I made a decision when I was about 15. I was going to go in the service when I was 17, and I was probably one of the last ones that came in it during that time frame, because I actually ended up telling my parents I wanted to join the service. So they were like, if you're serious, you can do it. But I think in some ways they were more against it. They wanted me to finish high school. But what I did was I talked to a recruiter when I was like 15 or 16.
Wow, you were serious.
Oh, yeah. And I would hang out at the recruiting center as much as I could. So I would jog down the area, get my exercise in, talk to the recruiters, constantly like being in that atmosphere of military service with these guys. As a
soaking
kid.
up all the knowledge, too, that you learned from them. Yeah.
So on my 17th birthday, which was April 28th, a recruiter picked me up at 4 o'clock in the morning because at midnight I was considered 17. They signed the paperwork right there, took me to the testing the federal building in Providence, and I took the test. They graded it right there, said you can go in, and I left like 3 days later, went to boot camp.
And what branch was this?
That was the Army.
You went in, you started off in the Army at 17 years old.
Yep. So I went in basically as open contract. I wanted to be combat arms. I wanted to be infantry, but I had to wait because it was basically the MOS was like 11 X-ray, which is open combat arms. So I went to Fort Jackson for 2 weeks and did details, picking up rocks and sweeping stuff up. I was alone, had one NCOIC that was over me. They brought another guy in from Pennsylvania, and then within 2 weeks, they flew us out to Benning. I was at Benning for boot camp and AIT along with Jeff. And then I made Honor Man because I didn't have an airborne contract. So they told me if I made Honor Grad from boot camp, I would get the airborne slot. So I did. I went to airborne school and eventually other things. So,
what year was that?
That was 1981.
1981.
Mm-hmm.
So you went to jump school, so then you were jump certified?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
so right after boot camp.
One thing that I'm just so fascinated by when I'm doing all these interviews is you were talking about your service and how your family was committed to serving. And I find that you're right, that is so true with a lot of our veterans, that there's that, I don't know, it's hard to put a finger on it, but it's like that.
It's a calling.
It's a calling. Yeah. There you go.
Good. It's a calling. Yeah.
So where was your first permanent duty station after you?
I went to Fort Bragg, got assigned to Company C, 1st of the 508th Airborne Infantry, the Wolf Pack. It was run by a guy named Sergeant First Class Bushinger, who was the most decorated guy in the regiment, or brigade, as they say in the Army. So he basically was the platoon sergeant, and I worked in different squads for about a year and a half, but my desire was to become the RTO. And I was good friends with our RTO, our platoon RTO, Tim Broderick, out of Charleston, South Carolina. So him and I hit it off pretty well, and he kind of guided me through what was required from the platoon sergeant of what I needed to do to get the position of RTO. And that meant I had to go to Recondo school, I had to get my EIB at the time, and do a number of things, have a high PFT, because with my platoon, Bushinger realized that if anything happened to him, I had to be able to call for fire and do a lot of things that he experienced in Vietnam. He had 3 tours in Vietnam as a Ranger with Kilo Company 173rd. So I did all these different things, and within a year and a half, I became the platoon RTO, and I absolutely loved it because I like knowing what's going on. I like knowing when hot chow's coming, when we're going to have our MREs, when the helicopters are coming in. And having that job, it gave me a lot more access to information that I wanted to share also with my platoon. I'm very good at getting along with all different types of people in different squads. And I enjoyed having that responsibility of being able to share information and also help my platoon in ways, being the RTO. It was a very important job, and I took it very serious.
And what does RTO stand for?
Radio telephone operator.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I didn't know. So
No. A lot of people look at the radio guy and they're like, oh, he's the radio guy. He must, he's the first one that gets zapped. Right. And that's true, so one of the first things you want to do if you're fighting someone is take away their ability to communicate and use radios for support fires and aviation and stuff like that. But we were very serious about it, especially in the airborne, and I'm sure a lot of other units. So RTOs typically should be highly motivated, highly trained, have a high ASVAB, high endurance. That kind of stuff gets heavy, but I enjoyed it. I took a lot of pride in it, and I made sure to learn as much as I can, from everyone.
We have so many different branches, and then there's so many different acronyms for each one. So that's why I wanted to know for myself. So maybe if someone else didn't know too, then maybe they got educated also.
Yeah, if you're a grunt, you'll know who the RTO is because you'll they always ask you questions. Hey, when's hot chow coming, or when we getting out of here? When the birds coming in? And I like making people happy. So it's one thing to have to give bad news, but as an RTO, you get that information that makes people happy. Like, hey, we're having hot chow this week, or we're going in, or birds are coming in 15 mics. So I like that.
Mail calls coming in.
Yes, I used to pass out the mail in the field and stuff, and it was always, 90% of it was good unless someone got a Dear John letter.
Yeah. So for those of you that are just now joining us, I'm sitting down here with our guest today, Keith Silva, and we're just talking about his military service. So after Fort Bragg, North Carolina, what was your next step?
My next step was I got out of the 82nd and I went back to Rhode Island. That's where I was from. And Rhode Island had a Special Forces company. It was a National Guard Special Forces company, 2nd and 19th A Company. So I went there, got an interview with A Company, and it was very strange that one of the XO of the company was actually a team member of my platoon sergeant in the 82nd. They had done a tour together in Vietnam.
Oh, wow.
His name was, he retired as Colonel Larry Pezzer, but he ended up being at this interview. I was accepted at the company, and eventually they wanted me to go the Q course at Fort Bragg. So
you went from active duty Army then into the reserves?
Well, the Army National Guard.
Oh, the Army National Guard. Okay, and how long were you in the National Guard for?
On and off about 3 years.
3 years.
So I did a little over a year and a half at A Company, and then I ended up going out to California, where I eventually tried to join the Navy. I wanted to apply for BUDS after boot camp. So when I went out to California, I was working on Terminal Island, and eventually went to a Navy recruiter, told him what I wanted to do, took the ASVAB, the physical, and it turned out that at this point, I needed to wait. They basically said, hey, you can come in, but not this year. And the problem was I'd already given my 2 weeks for my job because I didn't know that I had to wait. They had already filled their quota of prior service. So once I found that out, I had a decision to make. I could wait another year in California and join the Navy, or I could do something else. I didn't want to go back into the Army as I felt it was very micromanaged.
Okay.
To some degree. I wanted a new experience. So I ended up talking to my recruiter for the Navy, who was good friends with the NOIC of Marine recruiting. And I had a younger brother in the Marines at the time. So I called him and I talked to this Marine Master Sergeant, and I decided to give the Marine Corps a chance. So I flew back to Rhode Island because I wanted to go to boot camp at Parris Island as opposed to San Diego, and I ended up in the Marine Corps.
So how long was your break in service then?
They didn't give me a break. No.
Okay, well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. So then you're now in the Marine Corps, and you're in Parris Island.
Mm-hmm.
And after your boot camp, then what was next step? What was your not AIT? Geez, I don't know what the Marines call it, but MOS.
Yeah, MOS. So I wanted to stay in Combat Arms. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, if I wanted to try Force Recon or Anglico at the time, or go to sniper school. But long story short, I went to boot camp, made Honor Man again out of boot camp. Yay! So, but that was for someone else. I really didn't give a shit about it. If I use the word shit, is that bad on these things?
It's okay.
So anyways, I wanted to get a plaque from my recruiter who had put a lot of effort into getting me into the Marine Corps once I got back to Rhode Island. So I went on to me and I sent him the plaque. I didn't even go back to Rhode Island. I went to a place called Camp Geiger, which is at Camp Jackson, Marine Corps base, Jacksonville, Camp Lejeune. So I went for infantry training. And then while I was infantry training, they asked me if I wanted to go on this program called PRP, which is Personal Reliability Program, which means I could basically go to an embassy, security forces, guard nuclear weapons, whatever. It could be any of those things. But they eventually asked me if I wanted to go to Diego Garcia because there was a problem there. I won't go into that. And then I got sent to Diego, and they promoted me right off the bat once I got there to an NCO. And I stayed there for a year, and then I went back to the fleet.
When you went from the Army into the National Guard, then from that into the Marines, because I know that the rank is structured a little bit differently.
Yes.
When you entered the Marine Corps, did you have to take any reduction in rank or anything
like
that when
I
you
did.
came in?
I sure did. Because of the situation at the time, I had to go to basically 3 interviews with officers before they allowed me to join the Marine Corps.
Wow.
And I had to stand there at attention and do a right face, left face, answer a ton of questions. And these 3 boards, every time I went to a new board, there was a higher rank board members. So it started off like with a lieutenant, and then it went to a captain. And the last one I went to in Boston was with a Marine colonel. And he had some very direct questions why I wanted to join the Marine Corps. I was still relatively young too, so it wasn't like I was an old guy coming in, but that was the way they did it. And I played the game, if you want to call it that. And eventually they told me at the last board, you'll get a phone call from your recruiter and you will be required to leave home or wherever you're staying in 24 hours. And that's exactly what happened. So I got a phone call around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They said, you're leaving tomorrow. I went out and got really drunk with my brother. We partied and went dancing. And at around 3:30 in the morning, he showed up, picked me up, and took me back to Boston, and they sent me down to South Carolina.
Now, in my opinion, no matter what branch of service somebody serves in, they've served our country, and I feel that's very honorable. Mm-hmm. But one thing I'd like to ask you is, give us a little bit of a comparison of what it was like for you personally in the Army versus in the Marine Corps, like what a day would be like for you.
In boot camp or once
you
outside?
Got to your permanent duty station, yeah.
Back in 1981, there was a lot of Vietnam veterans, and they were at the platoon level. So I had a squad leader who was a Vietnam veteran, but there was more combat veterans than guys walking around. We had one guy with an EIB in my entire platoon, and the rest of them had CIBs. So my platoon sergeant was 3 tours. My first sergeant was 3 tours with 5th Special Forces, First Sergeant Townsend. So there was a lot of this Vietnam vet kind of feel to it,
Right.
No bullshit. No, I mean, no, if you did something, you could expect a serious ass whipping. I mean, ass whippings were, you'd rather get an ass whipping than office hours. And that's pretty much how it went down. They were like a bunch of wild animals. By the time I got to the Marine Corps in 1986, the Vietnam vets were no longer at platoon level, maybe once in a blue moon, but very seldom. They were all company level, company gunnies, first sergeant, shit like that. And the Marine Corps is just, it's a certain lifestyle, is a cultural, whatever you want to call it, but you have to experience it to understand it. Everyone looks at jarheads like, they're stupid, they're robotic, whatever. That's not really the case. It's just a certain mindset with them, like any branch. But I felt that culturally they were more, like, you talk to guys, why'd you join the Army? Well, I got college benefits and I want to be a Ranger and I get my SF tab, my Ranger tab, and this and that, and Black Beret. Well, the jarheads were different. They were basically like, I joined because I'm 3rd generation Marine, or 4th generation Marine. Who knows?
A lot of history.
A lot of history. Yeah, and they teach you that at boot camp. And it's not like the Army. The Army didn't teach shit about history, but in the Marine Corps, they taught a lot of history, why we are the way we are. So,
what was your next duty station when you were in the Marines then?
So I left Diego Garcia after a year, and I ended up going to. I had my choice. I could go to Okinawa or Pendleton or Lejeune, but I'm an East Coast guy, and a lot of my friends were there, so I figured I'd go back to the East Coast. So I went back to 2nd Marine Division. I went to Fox Company 2-4 as a squad leader.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And you were at what rank at that time?
I was a corporal.
Corporal?
Yep.
So take us through like what one of your daily job, not descriptions, but like, what you would do for like a day.
Typically in garrison, well, if we were at Lejeune, in my company, my battalion, we went to the field from Monday to Thursday every week.
So a lot of field training.
A lot of field training when you weren't deployed. But that,
right.
You're constantly, you're going to be deployed within a year or so. So what happens is you have these training evolutions, and they get worse and worse, or harder and harder. So you do these, marches. They're called Mcrest Marches. They don't do them anymore, but we would start off at 12 miles, go to 15, go to 18, go to 20, 22, 24, and you end up at 30 miles. I'm not sure if you guys have ever humped 30 miles with full combat gear, nonstop, but this is what we were doing.
Wow. Which
was different than the Army. In the paratroopers, we would travel faster and lighter for a shorter distance. So we might go 15 miles max. But in the Marine Corps, we were doing 30 miles. Not quite at the same pace, but we were carrying Mark 19s and 50 cals and mortars and stuff that, weapon systems that aren't typically used in an infantry platoon, in an airborne unit or a ranger unit, heavy stuff. But
I'm physically exhausted just listening to you describe it.
It's an ass kicker. I mean, you're not there to play games. So, the old saying, sweat more in training and bleed less in war. And in the Marine Corps, they really live by that route.
What was one of your favorite duty stations?
Oh, man. Well, I never left Lejeune as far as my home base. I was always with 2nd Marine Divisions, except for one stint I did in the Persian Gulf. I was assigned to another unit. But Diego Garcia was a unique place in the sense that it's so isolated. It's called the Footprint of Freedom, and it's a whole different vibe there for Marines. Marines are no longer stationed there, but typically there's a certain group of people there, and they are not very appreciative of jarheads in our mentality, the guys that went there, because we had a specific job to do, and that was to provide security for certain things on the island. And the Navy was used to, a more laxed environment. And that did not happen once we got there. And they were very unaccustomed to our approach to dealing with security. So, but as far as the Marine off duty there, I loved it because I like to fish and exercise and run, and
And where's
beautiful.
Diego Garcia located at? I've heard of it, but
It's
I don't want you to have to kill me though. If it's a
no
top
no no
secret,
no
okay,
no no
all right,
nothing. I don't have a top secret.
okay,
It's in the Indian Ocean. It's right smack in the Indian Ocean. And I think the
okay,
closest land mass is Sri Lanka, which is directly north about
okay.
13 or 14 miles.
So you mentioned some of the off-duty things that you like to do. That was going to
Yeah.
be my next question. You mentioned fishing. You
Well,
like
on
to do
Diego,
fishing?
yeah, there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot to do. So you were in the gym, fishing. You could be drinking. There's a lot of people party there, especially the other type of military folks there. They typically work and party. It's like a regular job. But, I had friends there and we would, go swimming in the lagoon and do a lot of running and in the gym a lot, swimming at the pool. Uh, you know, they had an outdoor theater, which was nice. So
Oh
you'd
wow.
sit outside and watch a movie, So
Because that's one thing I don't want to say worry about our service members when they're deployed, but especially to foreign countries
hmm
is, and I don't think our government would, our military would ever allow them to get bored. But sometimes when you've got a lot of downtime, you just can't find
yeah,
anything to do. That's usually when they'll find you something to do.
yeah. Well, it wasn't like that. The work, our schedule there is very busy. So at the time when I got there, it took. We didn't even have. Typically we needed two guard platoons, and we only had one for the first 4 months. So when you got there, you actually had to do training and get certified on the island by basically this gunny who specialized in what we were doing, and then once you were qualified, certified, then you could assume post, I guess you could call it. And you didn't have there wasn't a lot of downtime on Diego Garcia.
Do you have a lot of like water training or a lot of water
Yes,
activities in the Marines? I know
yes,
that the Navy that they have a lot of drills and stuff, but
yeah. It got they relaxed on it for a while, and in the late '80s there was a number of incidents where Marines drowned, especially in the infantry. So, you know, if you're not familiar with like an infantry, Marine infantry battalion, it's broken down into different types of units. So you have a helicopter company, then you have an Amtrak company, fast boat company, and they all specialize in certain types
right,
of military uh, operations. So the guys in the helicopter company typically, depending on when you're deployed and where you're at, you could be wintertime, but you're on an LPH or something like that, LPD, and you get in a helicopter at 1 o'clock in the morning, and you're 30 miles from the coast, and you're going to fly with full combat load wherever you're going to. It could be Africa, it could be Italy, it could be
right,
Turkey, and you're flying pitch black. And if the bird goes down, uh, you're probably not going to live anyways because most likely you're going to freeze to death before they can get to you. But the point is that if you can't get out of the helicopter, you don't stand any chance of surviving because the helicopter is going to roll and you've got 25 dudes, depending if it's a 53 or 46, whatever, or an Osprey. You have seconds to get out, but the point is that you're basically blind because it's pitch black. It rolls
right.
over in the water, so you've got to understand reference points and be comfortable in the water. So for a while, there was a number of Marines that had drowned in Amtraks and helicopter crashes, and that kind of changed. And in my company, Fox Company was a helicopter company. So one of the first things my gunny did, who was from Force Recon, was get a number of Marine NCOs, what they call WWSQI, which is Water Safety Survival Qualified Instructor. And it's a
Okay.
2 day school, and it's pretty intense. So I applied for it. I'm an ocean swimmer. I'm comfortable in the water. I grew up on the water. So I passed. But then we started running the entire company through this process of getting at least S3 qualified. Swim 4 is the worst one, but we wanted to get them at least be able to tread water and be comfortable in body armor in the water, be able to get out of your gear. So we went through this whole process, and the Marine Corps kind of ran with that. I'm not sure if they continued it after I got out of the Marine Corps, but Gunny was very serious about it and was hoping that we could save lives in case something did happen. So I think they take it a lot more serious now, getting these people qualified, especially being on the water,
Right.
being in gear,
Do they have a lot of rescue teams? And when I'm saying rescue teams, see if I can ask my question a little bit better. Like you were talking about the training and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So were there? Oh, I can't think of how I want to ask the question. But I guess like rescue. I mean, deep water rescue, stuff like that.
You're talking about if a helicopter crashes?
Yeah, yeah. I should have been more clear. I know.
Yeah, that's an odd question because if you leave ship, typically, if you're with a company, helo company, you leave ship, you might have 5 or 6, 7, 8 aircraft flying in a combat formation at night. It's pitch black. They're not flying with lights. They're using nods. And if you go down in the water, you're kind of screwed. It's going to be a while. So I had a Cobra crash next to my ship at about 1 o'clock in the morning up in the northern Med. And we got to them as quick as we could. But by the time we got there, they had already sunk and were killed. This was Christmas Eve of '88. And both of them were married. And it was very sad because when we got there, the aircraft was just rolling over. We don't know if the pilots, how bad they were broken up when they hit the water. But it was freezing out.
And like you said, it's so dark you couldn't see anything.
We'd set mortars up on the back of the ship and we're dropping the loom rounds off to the side so we could see the aircraft. The only thing we found wreckage. We only found wreckage, and we actually found the flight log that's strapped to one of the guy's legs. I don't know who it was, but and there was some styrofoam from the gun compartment where the minigun was, and a few other odds and ends. But where they sunk was 3,500 meters deep. So there was no way to retrieve that aircraft for the body. So they went to the bottom.
Well, the reason I asked that question is because when you're going to an area, and I would think that they'd have to have somebody trained in order to get to these service members that are in peril, that are specially trained, is what I meant to say.
Yeah, that's kind of outside my realm. I would take it that by the time they were ready to go. I mean, certain training evolutions, they may have safety boats out, but I didn't see that very often. And when you're doing these ops at night and it's really cold, if there are safety boats out there, you can't see them. And by the time you go 15 or 20 miles towards the coast, because like I said, you could be, 30 miles out, 10 miles in a small boat. By the time they get there, everything is over. The aircraft is sunk, and if you're out there, you only have minutes before you freeze to death anyway.
Yeah.
So.
What is it? Hypothermia?
Hypothermia, yeah.
What was your total length of service between your Army, National Guard, and Marine service?
About 12 years.
12 years?
Yep.
And why didn't you stay in to try and get your full 20 in?
I ended up getting married to a liberal, and I loved her to death. My first wife, still love her to death, but she did not embrace that lifestyle. I was gone a lot. When I was in the Marine Corps, I actually switched units. I never stayed with the same unit more than, I think, 9 months the longest. I was constantly being shipped around.
Right.
Ended up doing multiple deployments with different units, which was great because I got a lot of different experience with things with different companies. But my wife didn't want to have that kind of lifestyle. I asked her, and she just refused to stay in because I was going all the time, and I did not like being. I'm the kind of guy that likes to stay deployed. That's just me. I don't care about Christmas, holidays with family. I just want to train or do ops, and that
want
was
to be where the action is.
I want to be somewhere different than stateside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you're 12 years, and you get out of the Marine Corps, and what's next?
Well, I joined the National Guard again, and this time I go to a long-range surveillance company in Rhode Island, and I become the retention NCO. So I was there. I was kind of busy. I was also working on a tugboat, so I was kind of doing both jobs. But yeah.
And you were in that reserve unit for how long?
I stayed there for about 6 months.
Did you get a full 20 in
No.
between reserve then? So
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
How did you end up going from the East Coast, everything that you love? Well, before I get to that, I forgot to ask you how to get here, but I'm jumping ahead myself. I need to ask you about the story you were sharing with me off camera about your love for sailing and how you had met your wife, and you were telling me a little bit about that, and I wanted you to share that with the viewers if you would.
Yeah, well, there's a lot. I mean, there's just too much to talk about,
It's
but
on your shirt there even.
yeah, the complex couple.
Yeah.
So around 1996, I ended up going into a mental hospital for PTSD.
Okay.
And I was struggling with it from the time I'd gotten out of the service. My first wife was trying to get me to get help, and I didn't. I just wouldn't listen. I figured I could get through it, but eventually I ended up having to go into a 30-day program,
Okay.
and it still didn't help me enough to kind of get my head on straight. So eventually my marriage failed. I ended up getting into, counseling, seeing a psychiatrist, dealing with PTSD, eventually going to PTSD clinic hospital for, I think, 12 weeks. And, the first marriage dissolves. I guess it was around 1998, they ended up making me 100% for PTSD.
Okay.
And I started traveling. I didn't know what to do, so got back into motorcycles, racing, track days, made some new friends, and eventually I decided to go to Maine because a friend of mine that I was in the PTSD hospital with, a Vietnam veteran,
Right.
asked me to go and watch his property over the winter, so I didn't have to pay rent. So I went, and I was there for maybe a month or so, and eventually decided, I might want to go out and have dinner with someone. So I met someone who turned out to be, my current wife, who I absolutely adore, and
And her name is
Jennifer Hooper.
Jennifer.
Mm-hmm. So, we met, we dated. It's kind of long and involved, but I ended up moving to Florida after Maine, and she was
Okay.
coming down and visiting me. And then one morning I got up and I asked her to marry me, and we ended up getting married that day.
Oh, wow.
And then I went back to Maine, and we decided to sell her house. Now, COVID at the time wasn't really a big deal. It was just starting.
Just starting. So we're talking 2020, early 2020?
Yeah, 2019, 2020.
Okay.
So we decided to sell her house, buy a new cargo van, and I would build it out. So that was the plan. And then a buddy of mine called me and says, Keith, I've got this big yacht I want to bring down to Florida from Rhode Island. Will you help me get it down there? So I did. So we sold Jennifer's house and a lot of her belongings. We loaded everything in a van, put the rest in storage, went down to Rhode Island from Maine, and I built the van out in Rhode Island at my buddy's shop and also
Okay.
worked on the boat. So Jennifer, what she's was planning on doing was traveling in the van south as we sailed south, and then she would meet us every couple of weeks, replenish the boat, and eventually we'd end up in Florida. And that's what we did. Unfortunately,
Sounds like a plan, huh?
yeah. So she fell down in North Carolina, broke her wrist
Oh.
really bad. So she ended up going down to Charleston, staying with my brother for 3 weeks. I finished the trip, got a rental car in where the hell was it? Fort Myers. Drove to South Carolina, my brother's house. Got rid of the rental car, got in the van, and drove Jennifer back down to the yacht, which we stayed on for about 3 weeks until my buddy came back to stay on it. And then Jennifer and I went up to northern Florida. We looked for a house, couldn't find anything that we wanted. And then we came out west. And then just by, sheer luck, I ended up in Bisbee, McNeil, and we decided to buy a house, which I did in April. And
Well,
that's how I got here.
One thing that you mentioned, and I just have to go back to it,
Mhm.
3 weeks on a yacht, living on
Oh,
a
it was
yacht.
longer
That
than
must
that.
have been tough. Well, for you and your wife.
Oh,
you
no.
said.
Yeah. No.
As a married couple, I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. It's not a modern yacht. It was built in 1994, but it's nice.
Okay.
It's a 50. I think it's a 56 footer. But I just maintained it until my buddy came down, and at that time, COVID had hit pretty hard, so we were isolating ourselves, staying on the boat, staying away from people, and just kind of enjoying our time together. And I had the dog, and of course, she was working too.
But what I'm saying, though, is what a great way to start a marriage off, though. I mean,
Yes.
you don't have a lot of bills or really financial
Yeah.
things to hang you guys up or anything. You
Yeah.
can go, kind of come and go as you want.
Yeah.
I mean, and then to be on a yacht, even if it's what you described as a yacht.
Yeah,
I mean,
I couldn't complain, believe me. Yeah. But, it does get a little taxing living with someone on a boat after a few weeks.
You mean like the tiny cramped quarters?
Yeah.
I got to ask, you said that you came out here from Florida.
Yes.
Why Cochise County? How were we fortunate enough to get you? How did you find out about us?
I had been looking at Bisbee. I'd been looking at this part of the country for over 10 years.
Okay.
Online. And it was kind of like in the back of my mind that I want to go out there and check it out because I do like the deserts and the mountains. So when Jennifer and I didn't find a house in Florida, we just came up with the idea, let's drive to Roswell, New Mexico. I want to see the UFO museum.
Yeah.
So I drove nonstop from Tallahassee to Roswell, New Mexico. Jennifer worked and slept in the van, and I think I did it in 30 hours. And we got there, we stayed there for about 5 days and got a hotel. And then after that, we drove to Phoenix so she could see some family. And we were there for a couple of days. And then we were basically, Jennifer's like, where do you want to go now? And COVID was hitting pretty hard. I said, you know what, let's go out to southern Arizona. We'll find an RV park, we'll sleep there. And that's what we did. We came out and we were here for a couple of months and just decided, hey, we like it. Let's pick up a house. And I found one that was, within the parameters of what we wanted and got a good deal on it and bought it.
And what town is it?
That's Hereford.
In Hereford. Oh, I live in Hereford. So. Okay. It's just, I love to hear all these different stories about how people find Cochise County because we always think that it's a great little secret hiding place. So I love all these different stories. So thank you for sharing that. Tell us a little bit about the complex couple.
Okay, the complex couple is something that my wife is responsible for. She's a life coach. She's done a lot of coaching for women that want to get ahead. But when we were building out the van, prior to building out the van, we came up with this idea that we would share our trips and experiences and be very transparent about the good times in marriage, the bad times, and other topics, off topics. And we came up with a complex couple because my wife and I are completely opposite on everything. How it works is up to the spirits. I'm not sure, but we called it the complex couple because we figured if we can do it, people that have more in common should be able to hopefully save their marriages, have better relationships. So we started doing videos, podcasts, we wrote blogs. You can find them on the complex couple. And we were hoping that by doing this, we would help people in general have better relationships with their kids, their wives, their friends, enjoy life more, better ways to get through, adversity in life. And, we also wanted to give back. So we were hoping that if we sold t-shirts or we had donations, we could give a little back to homeless shelters because I was homeless for a while. And when things went south for me, they went south hard. I don't need to get into all that, but I have a really deep spot for homeless people in my heart. I've had to sleep in homeless shelters, and I don't judge them anymore. Not all of them. So
because we don't know their circumstances.
We don't. It's so easy to judge. Yeah. So that was a big motivation for me, was to hopefully make people's lives better. And my wife feels the same way. Really, we just wanted to share a very transparent experience of two people that are opposite, marrying and struggling through the day and learning to get along and be good human beings and good servants of society.
And I think that it's those differences that you can find that common ground that make the marriage better. And if you wanted to be married to yourself, how boring would that be? I mean, you got to have some excitement.
Yeah.
And so what is the website for the complex couple? Is it
it's called
complexcouple.com?
.com. And you'll find we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, other platforms. We have kind of put it on the back burner for now because things have been really, really busy. And when COVID hit, of course, the complex couple, we were supposed to travel around in an RV and write stories and blogs, and we actually settled down. And my wife has been working in her own business pretty hard, kind of rebranding herself. But you can still find stuff there. I still post certain things, but we're hoping once this spring comes, we can start getting it more active again.
What business does your wife have?
She is a life coach, an NLP coach, but it's, you can find her at the Complex Couple or at
Okay.
Jennifer Hooper at jenniferhooper.com.
Okay.
So if you're struggling with financial decisions with business or a bad marriage, she typically works with females. And I'm not saying this because I want her to make a ton of money, but she can definitely help
Right.
you. She's helped me with my PTSD, with different techniques that we use, and she can definitely help you if you're struggling with decision making or confidence or not taking care of yourself. So
Does she work out of the Warrior Healing Center at all?
no, she doesn't. We've talked
yeah.
about it.
Yeah, we need to talk about that some more.
Yeah.
Because one thing that I love and was my calling to volunteer here at the center was because of the big veteran population that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And we do get quite a few homeless veterans here. We get quite a few veterans that are struggling with PTSD. Suicide prevention is another big thing here at the Warrior Healing Center. I mean, there's just so much.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so overwhelming how Kathy and Tim are able to do all this stuff. And I know they have a great core of people, and you're one of those people from what we were, again, talking about off camera. You had shared with me that you come in here and help out Beth and Eddie.
Yeah,
Sorry, Eddie.
Yeah.
Brain fart.
Yeah, Eddie does a lot of work for this place.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite realize how much or how deeply he is involved in getting things fixed and maintaining stuff. And I tend to enjoy working with Eddie more than doing anything else. But I can't say enough about the staff here. I mean, between
Yes.
Tim and his wife and Beth and all these other people,
Dan,
how they go out.
Donna.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so many.
Yeah, I've been involved with a lot of vet centers or veteran organization things over the last 20 something years, and this place is really amazing. I mean, all of them have good intentions, but what you get for free here.
Yes.
You'll never get this at a VA hospital. Never in a million years. I can't speak highly enough of this place.
And I got to share this with some of you because maybe you haven't been into the Warrior Healing Center yet. But Eddie is so talented, and maybe you've helped him with some of this stuff. But I love how he built a door in the room and kind of sectioned off. And then what does he do up here in this other office up here? He put it, I mean, you guys, they're constantly like, there's always stuff going on here.
Yeah. Eddie is multi-talented.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any filter. I'm going to say that, but I absolutely love the guy, and there's nothing he wouldn't do for a vet or this place. So I think, without Eddie, a lot of these things would not get done. If they did, it'd be out of pocket. So
if you're a veteran at your home and you just kind of haven't found your niche yet, and you're looking for maybe something to do or some way to help out, come to the Warrior Healing Center. I'm sure that there's all kinds of good things here that they could use your help with. So don't be afraid to reach out. And the phone number is right on the bottom of the screen there, along with the website. They're always looking for volunteers. Also, if you haven't been into the Warrior Healing Center and you are a veteran in need, there's no shame in that. There's no judgment here for any of that stuff. That's why they're here. They're here to help our nation's veterans. And it's just amazing all the work that they do here. You come in the front door and you sit down, you do a thing on the computer, you do a little intake form, answer some questions, get in the system, and they do a lot of great work here.
Yeah, don't if what you're doing is not working for you, that's a sign to do something else. And lots of times you just don't know what to do or what resources are available for you. So in a place like this area, you don't have a lot of resources. There's no vet center, there's no VA hospital, there's a clinic, but this is the place you should come to and give it a chance, give it the opportunity. These people will help you, but it can't happen in one day. You've got to give it time. But if you're at home and you're thinking about I don't feel good, or I'm suicidal, or I'm drinking too much, or I'm just depressed, or I got no one to talk to, I need some resources, or even help, food or whatever, just, call. If you can't even get here, if you don't have a vehicle,
Yes.
someone will get you here to talk to someone. So just don't wait too long. Don't wallow in sadness and all that other stuff, because this place is here to help you.
Well, that is well said.
You think so?
Oh,
Not
yeah.
bad for a GED.
I love it. Yes. I love it. In closing, and maybe you just nailed it, so maybe I shouldn't even have to ask this question, but in closing, what advice or wisdom that you would like to share with some of our veterans out there?
Don't give up. Honestly, do not give up.
Hope.
Yeah, hope. There's help. And I just cannot say enough. Don't quit. Don't give up ship.
And Keith, there's no shame in asking for help. There really isn't.
Yeah. Like I said, a number of years ago, I had no occupation, no job, no money, no place to sleep. I refused to accept help from anyone or ask anyone for help. And it was really the worst decision I ever made, because it kept me from being able to see and do what I needed to do. I just kind of like wallowed in it for a while, and it's I don't advise that.
Well, I think until you realize that you have a problem, it's really hard to seek help for it.
Yeah, and that was the issue. I just refused to realize that I needed help. I didn't have the ability to fix myself by myself. So.
Well, I got a few announcements I need to read here real quick. If you can hang out with us for a couple of minutes, and then we're all done here. Again, Keith, I want to thank you so much for sitting in with us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for sharing your story. I really do, and I say this all the time, but I really do enjoy doing these interviews. I get to meet the fascinating veterans of Cochise County, and I could easily go on for another hour stammering and to get my question across, but eventually I get there. So I appreciate everybody being patient with me on that. Again, this isn't a polished, refined show.
No.
I'm just sitting here asking questions that I would want to know.
I've never really talked to Mike before. Today is the first time.
Yeah.
I got a text message last night saying, "Hey, they need someone to fill in for a guest that can't make it."
Yeah.
I came in this morning. That's why my hair looks so good.
And that's why we appreciate so much for, again, you stepping up, and we've had those situations. Sometimes life happens,
Yeah, sure does.
And you just roll with the punches the best that you can.
Mm.
So some of the events that we have going on here at the Warrior Healing Center, we have the live stream and podcast production center, which is this studio right here and the one across the hall. So if you are interested in doing a live stream show like you're watching right now, or if you want to do a audio podcast, the studios and facilities are available to you. All you have to do is go to the Warrior Healing Center. Well, actually, go to the email, vets, VETS, vets at warriorhealingcenter.org to schedule, or I'm sure if you call them, they'll get back to you on that. We also have every day, Monday through Friday, we have the daily AARP tax aid and VITA tax preparation. It's for appointment only. So if you need to make an appointment, you can do one of two things. You can either come here to the Warrior Healing Center. We have a computer in the lobby where you can make your appointment there, or you can call 520-255-8830 and leave a message, and they will get back to you and schedule your appointment. Today, it's the 25th. I said the 26th.
You did say, yeah, it is the 25th.
Because I'm looking at the calendar here. Today is the 25th. Boy, I blew that one. Today, Hot Soup Friday is back here at the Warrior Healing Center. Last week we didn't have it because we had bagels and brews. So that starts at 1,100 hours and goes to 1,600 hours. And today's soup is soup surprise because I don't know, surprise. Next, we have at 1,500 to 1,700 hours, we have the Gratitude Drum Circle taking place out front here at the Warrior Healing Center. If you want to watch some really interesting people sit around and play different types of drums and The rhythmic music is very soothing, and come down here and check it out at the Warrior Healing Center today. Again, that starts at 1,500 hours. We also have tomorrow, the 26th, at 09:30 to 10:30, we have the Warrior Experience, which will be taking place here at the Warrior Healing Center Recreation Room. Also on Saturday, February 26th, starting at 1,300 hours, going to 1,500 hours, it's the Coach East Lennox Users Group monthly meeting, and that will be taking place at 143rd Street Tacos. We also have the Marine Corps Breakfast coming up on Monday, February 28th at 0900 to 1000 hours. Is this something that you go to?
No, I don't.
No? It takes place at the Landmark Cafe, and it's where Marines meet for coffee and tell old war stories. So if you're a Marine and you want more information on that, call 520-456-5720, and that takes place again at the Landmark Cafe. Tuesday, March 1st, can't believe March is here already. Wow. We have Hero Paws Service Animal Support Group, and that will be taking place here at the Warrior Healing Center starting at 1,800 and going to 1,900 hours. We also have the AmVets Post 89 meeting taking place here on Tuesday, March 1st, starting at 18:30 and going to 19:30. Wednesday, March 2nd, at 10 o'clock, we have the Bello Bets group ride at Pueblo del Sol Country Club parking lot. I showed up at the one for that last week, and I rode almost 2 miles, and it kicked my butt. It was hard.
On your bicycle or motorcycle?
On the bicycles.
Oh.
Bicycles.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Stu Carter, who runs the group, was nice and lent me a three-wheel bike. And, man, these guys and gals that ride this, they're just amazing. I have a whole new respect for what they do just for going that one day. Mm-hmm. So, they ride every Wednesday and Saturday at 10 o'clock, and they meet at the Pueblo del Sol Country Club parking lot. We have the Flutes for Vets coming up on March 3rd. Starts at 1,700 hours and goes to 1,830. And last but not least, we have the Warrior Healing Space and Timing, which is a PTSD support group, which will be meeting here at the Warrior Healing Center's main conference room Thursday, March 3rd, starting at 18:30 and going to 19:30 hours. Keith, again, yes. I can't thank you enough for taking time out and joining us today. And thank you, everybody, for joining us here at the Warrior Healing Center. Michael Zehr, we will see you again next Friday. Take care.
I got one more thing. On Saturdays, if any of you vets have time, there's a group on Saturdays now that start right here at 09:30. It usually goes about an hour to an hour and a half. Basically, it's run by myself and retired first sergeant, and we talk about some of PTSD issues. Pretty good conversation, and just a very supportive group. It's very small now. It's new, but every Saturday at 09:30, unless we say it's not running. So. And
what's the name of the group?
We haven't really. You
haven't named it yet.
We haven't really named it yet, but it's basically PTSD based.
Okay. And is this for? Well, I guess all branches. If you got PTSD, not all branches. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter where you're from. So yeah, you can come Vietnam, 80s, 90s, 2000s, Iraq, right. Afghanistan.
If you have PTSD, you have PTSD. That's all you need to.
And even if you don't know if you have PTSD, if you're depressed, if you're just down and out, whatever, it's a place to come, and you can talk to other vets if that's something you're interested in.
That's outstanding. Mm-hmm. I love to hear about these groups and the success that they're having too.
Yeah.
So good luck with that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks again.
Care.
Appreciate it.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody. Take care. Have a good weekend.